Hello, thanks for joining me. Shall we have a little Carp corner where I share my thoughts, aspirations and a little bit of knowledge that I've gained while carp fishing or attempting to carp fish or filming, photographing, whatever, all the things I get up to while I'm at the lake. So, it's the end of February 2022 and a new carp year is out ahead of us all. Let's hope it's a good one. One or two personal bests would be nice. My personal bests in the past have been a number of fish caught in a day session and the largest of a particular species. So that's grass carp, common carp, mirror carp, ghost carp, and a few variants in them in between. So that gives me a few PBs to aim for. My favourite day last year was the day after my birthday. That's when a PB mirror carp showed up and quite a number of other double figure, mid to upper doubles in fact, gave me a new PB for my personal best of number of carp caught in a day session. As you know, I fish dawn till dusk. I don't fish overnight because I don't think it would be any more successful for me. And I've caught most of the carp I want during those hours of daylight. So I'll leave the overnighters to the younger, fitter, and the lads who were keen, and lasses, were keen to stay over at the lake. I have mixed feelings about staying over. I can see it's a very lucrative business for any fishery owner, and it may well be a great getaway for the angler that does stay over. But I've also been at the lake first thing, even as the gates open, and I've seen bivvies zipped up, nobody out looking, nobody out learning. So opportunities missed, I've always felt. Now I know you could say the bite alarms are on, but I've seen so many carp jump and move and show close in, and we'll cover that soon, and out in the lake, and being zipped up tight in a bivvy, you're never going to see that. So it's an experience that I hope you try. Yes, it's getting up early, but if we can't get up early to do something we love, what can we get up early for? I've got up early and driven 300 miles to go on a helicopter to an oil rig. I've worked night shifts. I've worked every shift going. So I know what unsociable hours are like in your work. As a youngster, I would get up and get a bus at 7:30, absolutely filled to the brim with people going to the shipyards, most of them smoking their heads off. In fact, the upper deck of the bus was smoke from the top down to waist level. So, getting up early, putting yourself out, yes, it's colder, yes, it's early, but you don't really need that sleep when you're young. There's plenty of time to sleep when you're dead. So, if you're going to change one thing in your carping, it's unzip that bivvy door and look out from first light. Now, if you go carp fishing to catch carp, then you need as much knowledge gained from the day and past experiences as you can get. If you go carp fishing as a social, then, put simply, don't expect to catch as many carp as you could have. I'm not talking about being antisocial. I'm just talking about focusing to the point where you achieve what you went there for. Remember when you phoned up and booked that day or week or couple of days overnight? How excited you were. And it was based on catching carp as part of the equation. Yes, you would meet a pal, maybe crack open a can, have a barbecue, cooking by the lake. But if I was to say to you, how would you like to increase your catch rate by 50%? Then I think you'd be a fool not to jump at the opportunity. Put simply, arrive and set up, because if you book a peg, you probably have to stay in that peg. Or if you book just a peg on a lake, once you've sussed out where you want to fish, then I suggest you set up as quietly with as least disturbance as possible. Get your rods out very early on in the proceedings, as well as a landing net, of course. Don't be caught out having a fish on and no landing net. And try and concentrate on catching carp rather than just being excited all day, hyper. I don't think carp fishing is a sport where the catch rate is linked to hyper activity. Shouting and bawling, banging pegs in, shouting across the lake, making a noise at the water's edge. It's all gonna put the fish off. Yes, they'll come back, but maybe not during the time you were there. Let's give them credit for knowing the lake better than you. They know where you like to fish. They know where you don't fish. And guess where they're gonna choose if you start making a noise? And that leads me to margin fishing and my recommendations. Only my recommendations, because, spoiler alert, there's no guarantees in carp fishing. Sorry. Maybe join another channel, watch another big team go to a far-flung country, throw £1,000 at the trip and catch a carp too big to lift out the water. We're talking about local average working man and woman carp fishing, improving every time they go, enjoying every time they go, finding out more about nature every time they go, and can't wait to get back as soon as you leave. So, margin fishing, what is it? What's it all about? Do I do it? Well, yes. I've seen quite a few times carp right tucked in at the bank side, at the edge of the peg, on arrival. Now, they don't stay around long, so catching one is a very stealthy business and very hard to achieve because we turn up in cars carrying lots of gear. Bank sticks, bivvies, tent pegs, they're all conducive to creating noise on the bank, which is amplified where a carp's concerned. If I was to say I'd seriously considered parking away from the peg, setting up my rods and then edging towards the spot where I might cast from or drop in, then that's how serious I take. If you were to think about an hour into your trip, then fishing in the left or the right margin is probably more conducive than fishing directly at your feet because the carp have gone. They may well return during the day, but you might not see them, and you certainly aren't likely to be fishing for them. A few free offerings at your feet will turn up some surprises over the days when you see that carp will actually come right in. Left and right hand margins. Usually at the lake I go to, Willows, part of the Oaks complex, a fantastic 10-lake complex. Great owners, fantastic bailiffs, there's a good tackle shop, a cafe for whatever you might need, even gas canister supplies for your portable gas stoves. So, getting back to the lake, on Willows Lake, most pegs have overhanging trees or bushes to the left and to the right of each peg. Those are where I fish when I talk about margin fishing. This isn't the stalking fishing, which is another issue completely. It's margin fishing when you're static, i.e. sat in a peg. Again, I, different to a lot of others, do everything from a sitting position. I've graduated to a match type box with a backrest. But not so long ago I had a comfy carp chair, which if I could have stood up easily from it, but age and infirmity of my knees mean I can't rise easily, so I needed something slightly higher, but still with a backrest, and that's how I've arrived at the box that I use. So there I am in a static position, rods to my side, everything within reach, including landing nets. And I would fish logically to the left because it's out of the way of all the other activities, but consider to the right. And the first approach is to feed the areas. If I see carp activity, then that encourages me to fish there. I fish with 2 rods. Some of you may well fish with 3. If so, then it's less of a commitment to tie up a rod most of the day in a margin. When you're fishing with just 2 rods, it does seem a bit putting all your eggs in one basket to fish one out in the lake and one in a margin. But that's the way I approach it. And should conditions change or activity of carp change, I'll fish 2 in the margin, one either side. Now, it takes a strength of character and quite a strong mind to resist casting to the moon out into the lake at every opportunity. If you see carp rising, then yes, target them. But if not, then believe it or not, margins play just a part in the daily feeding cycle of the carp as any other part of the lake. We know that carp like to hug the margins of islands at different parts of the day. So, turning that principle on its head, think of your left margin as being the same as the margin of an island, and treat it with the same approach and respect. Obviously, the wildlife like to get free food, and this time of year and spring onwards, they have families to feed, newborn chicks, so they get quite hungry and they will come in and dive onto your bait, so be aware of that. There's no point in hooking up any wildlife if you can avoid it. There is a school of thought that would say take some spare bait and put it into an area to encourage the wildlife, the ducks, coots, moorhens, encourage them to feed on these freebies. But when they are prolific, it takes a lot to fill them up, and they're not the sharpest knives in the drawer, so they tend sometimes ignore the freebies and go for your free land bait out in the lake or in a margin. So keep an eye out for them. Does margin fishing work? It certainly does. I don't expect anybody to commit a rod all season to a margin. But using the principle of back-to-back testing, i.e. two identical setups, one in one place and one in another, and I think you would be amazed, pleasantly surprised hopefully, how many fish you will catch from a margin. Now, again, spoiler alert, it's not a guarantee of success, but there's every chance of success. So give it a go. Commit one of your rods under that bush with a bait on. See how it goes, and leave a comment when you get that personal best from a margin. What are my ambitions for this year? Well, I've got a new camera, so photography is going to play a big part in catching wildlife photography. Drones, again, I'm going to try and introduce my drone into videos more regularly, just to spice things up, because the day can go quiet at the lake, and I like my tech I like my photography and I like combining both with the wildlife. So if I was to get a better photo or a new species photographed, then I would in some ways have achieved at least one of my ambitions for 2022. Another ambition is to catch more grass carp. Last year was a poor year in my catching of grass carp. I never saw as many, I never caught as many, but I was encouraged. I saw others catch, so they were there, and that's hard to take when you target a species and somebody else catches it. We'd all like to think that we would wish them well, but we would really like to see our hands holding that carp just caught. Underwater filming. Again, I've come to the conclusion I'm never going to catch a decent photo underwater. I've tried and tried, and I've sold all my underwater camera gear. So unless I adopt more underwater cameras, I'm never going to catch them. I've caught some amazing footage of carp leaping out of the water day after day in the same spot. So I'd be a fool not to adopt that as a target. This year I plan to go to the lake, see what's been changed, what's been cut back, wait for the foliage to grow again over the lake and see where the carp show. Show being the term when they quite obviously come out of the water or make a fuss. Seeing them as they show is the first step to targeting them and then catching them. I've seen them on videos when I've looked back during the edit process and realised that carp have jumped out or shown while I was setting up, and that's always nice to see. Has the lake become boring at all? Not in the least. Certain pegs have become predictable, but then another year they've changed, and this is to do with the foliage and the overhanging trees. As long as the willows are still there, and as long as the bushes grow and overhang, then we'll have carp sunbathing and then shielding from the sun in these overhangs. May is my favourite month. June and July, the carp just love to sunbathe. It's a fantastic sight and film, but it's quite hard to catch. So finding cruising grass carp, well, that's an ambition of every year for me. I'm going to wind up this video now, wishing you all well for 2022. Hope you adopt some of my ideas and come on board at the channel and watch me as I film my exploits of carp fishing. Thanks for joining me.